This is how this animation started, and this is how it's going. Hi, I'm Elizer, my friends call me E, and I'm an animator. If you're joining us for the first time, we're in the middle of this shot where we're taking these 2 frames from a storyboard that I did, and we're making it into a full animation. This is all part of an original story that I'm doing called Neelam Mango Boy, and I've been working on it for about 6 years now on and off, but just recently I've decided to go all in, and I'm bringing you guys along on the journey, so be sure to subscribe up to see the full process. So in this video, we're gonna take this animation from Procreate and we're gonna bring it into Procreate Dreams. We're gonna organize our layers once we get there, and then we're going to focus on in-betweening and shade lines. And we're also gonna focus on animating the blast and impact frames. In the first video, I talked about doing 2 different shots. I think I'm just gonna focus on this 1 shot for this 3-part series. And then maybe in the future, I'll get to that second shot where we saw that wide shot. So just a heads up there. Now that you know where we're going, let's get into it. So the first thing I do is go to Procreate and prepare my file. Each frame should have its layers grouped. If you're working in animation mode, you probably already have it grouped, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. I didn't prepare mine perfectly, but the cleaner it is, the easier it's going to be for you. Now, while I'm in here, people keep asking me about brushes. Now, I don't think it really matters which one you use for line work because the process that this shot is going to undergo is going to blur these lines anyway, so they don't really matter as long as they're fine enough. But for the sake of this, I am using the Narrator pencil. Here it's called Narrator Pencil 1 because I duplicated it after changing it, but I made 2 changes to it. I set the streamline at 26% and the stabilization to 38%. Doesn't have to be exact that way, but that's what gives the lines that smooth flow. And the best part, you can literally grab any brush from Procreate and drag it straight into Procreate Dreams. So you're using the same brush in both apps. Full disclosure, I did jump ahead and do some of the shading to kind of get a sense of what it would feel like, but don't worry, I'm gonna be redoing the whole thing later on in this video, so stick around for that. All right, moving on. Once my file is clean and my brushes are set, I open Procreate Dreams. Now here's something they don't tell you. You can't resize the canvas before you open a file, like you can in Procreate. So I create a new file first, then I resize it. The file size for this particular shot is 2334 by 1658, but you'll notice that inner action safe box where all the animation lives, that's about 2005 by 1128. I got those dimensions from Dong Chang's channel. He works in the animation industry in Japan and built a whole template around it. I'll drop a link in the description to that video. Once the file is resized and ready, I go back to Procreate, open the gallery, grab my file, drag and drop it straight into the Procreate Dreams timeline. There it shows up as a flipbook. So you can double click the canvas to go into that flipbook, and in there you can separate out your layers as you need to. So there's no export, no import, just drag and drop. All right, onward to the in-betweens.
I'm going to go ahead and make some in-betweens here. So I'll just trace this section and then pull it back.
So between those 2 keyframes, I'm adding in-betweens, the drawings that go between the key poses to create the motion.
I'm just holding the iPad with my hands, by the way. I used to sketch like this on my notebooks as a kid.
Now for this motion, I wanted him to pull his arm back. Now his arm is already a bit cocked, but I wanted to have him pull it back even further. So I added a frame showing how far back I wanted him, and then I created an in-between between those 2. And then to show the motion of him pushing his hand back forward, I just duplicated one of the in-betweens and placed that between him being fully cocked back and fully extended. And I felt like that was a good way to match how they were economical about how many frames they used to get a motion across. Okay, so after adding in all those in-betweens, here's how that came out. All right, now let's move on to our shade lines.
When I'm shading, what I'm trying to do basically is use the shadows to show the shapes. And then there's also, I'm adding the style that those old school animators used to use. This is a super bright light. A lot of light's gonna be coming from this spot. Some of those rays are going to come on the other side of his body as well. So you're gonna see some wraparound light, but let's start on his leg. So this part of his muscle is facing forward, so I'll probably do one of these. The leg is going up straight like this, right? That's the straight line that I'm gonna be following because I want the shading to also, even though it's coming from the energy blast, I want his leg direction to be exemplified by the shadow lines, if that makes sense. And that keeps the shadow lines somewhat consistent. That gives you kind of a sense of what I'm talking about, I hope. All right, for here I just mainly kind of follow the outline. I want this vibe to happen from up here. Feel that, and then on that side, that. You know what I'm saying?
A good way to get better at this is looking up the actual Genga from the show and see how they shaded things like the face. How'd they shade the arms? How did they shade clothing, flaps, all that stuff? You wanna look at that stuff and practice. When I think about shading, I'm thinking about trying to get as perfect of a volume. Like, there was a stylistic choice that they had where they made everything very angular, and it made it easy to understand which direction things were moving in. And they did that with what I like to call S lines. You could always see like there was a general line that they were following because it's all shapes. So you wanna shade the shape in and then add the S lines in wherever you see a break in form. So for the arm, I handled it this way. For the legs, I handled it this way, depending on what was going on with the lighting. Here's how that turned out. So here's a shot with Vegeta on Namek. This is after Goku defeated Raccoon, Jace, and Birder, and Vegeta sees the moment as an opportunity to get ahead, so he blasts Raccoon in the distance. That blast he uses in that scene is a perfect example of where I'm trying to go with this. So we're gonna use that as our reference. I actually found that shot, and broke down how long each of those frames stays on. But I mean, that looks intense, the way they did that. The way that the blast leaves his hand, the way the lines kind of guide that motion, it's almost like those lines become that one solid line there. So you got this, 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 and this, and then this. So that's pretty much where I'm gonna go from. I'm gonna go from like, maybe right here. Yeah, I'm gonna do from there. From right here. Boom, boom. So let's take this into our own project and see what we can do. That's what that's going to look like. Now this has got to be a much bigger impact frame. I'm going to reference the Vegeta shot real quick. Okay guys, this is what it looks like with the impact frames in there, with the shadow lines in there, and with everything timed just right. I was gonna save coloring everything in for the last video, and I still am. I am gonna color in the impact frames, and I'm also going to color in the shade layers the way that they would do the original Genga, which is actually called Doga, I believe. And this is what that looks like after I colored all of those in. In part 3, we're gonna cover color, background painting, and how to composite this to give it that 90s look that we're trying to emulate here. So all of that's gonna be in part 3. I hope you guys are excited. I'm very excited. So thank you guys for watching. Peace.